There.
Forget everything else for a moment and pay very close attention to the words you're about to hear. Something is wrong with your reality. Big government, big business, the mainstream media, and orthodox science all tell you what to believe. Yet the holes in their stories only get bigger every day. Welcome to your wake-up call. Welcome to your Red Pill. Welcome to Mental Self-Defense Radio and the Jake Shannon Radio program. Now, here's your host, Jake Shannon.
Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to Mental Self-Defense Radio. I'm your host, Jake Shannon. This is where Utah gets its daily dose of liberty and logic. You can think of us as the Second Amendment for your mind. This is the show that fights to close that gap between rhetoric and reality. Now, follow my instructions closely. Write down our call-in numbers, 801-254-5855 in Salt Lake County, 801-670-5855 in Weber and North Davis County. If you're in Utah County, use one of the other two numbers. As Thomas Jefferson before me, I've sworn an eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the minds of men. So while I may not agree with what you say when you call in, I will always fight for your right to say it. Now, today is August 16th, Tuesday, 2011. I'm thrilled for today's show. I'm always thrilled for the show because I'm happy to talk with you guys, get an idea of what is of concern to you. I'm also excited to share news items and information from the perspective of liberty and whatnot. Today, we've got a guest. Okay, so fans of the show or fans of mine will know that I am a writer. I've most recently written a book called Say Uncle. You can go to sayunclebook.com. It's actually on the history of wrestling, a particular style of wrestling here in the United States called Catch as Catch Can wrestling. And that's a bestseller, believe it or not. You can just look up Say Uncle and my name, maybe in Amazon.com. So I'm a writer, and I've written my other books. I've written The Hypnotist, Healer, Head Hacker, and Headliner. That's my most recent book, all about hypnotism. I've gotten great reviews. A guy who is international star, probably the most well-known and famous hypnotist in the entire planet, has given me a glowing review on the back. I've also written Teocond, which has gotten me quite a bit of notoriety in libertarian circles and political circles, mostly because it was the first book on the Tea Party, but also it was the first book to really expose the neoconservative infiltration of the Tea Party, how the big government Republicans, the establishment GOP, their methods and means to basically take over the Tea Party, which was this populist uprising of anti-tax, pro-liberty, that kind of sentiment. So I've written a few books. Oh, and then I wrote Anomaly, which if you're interested, you can find at anomalybook.com, which will take you to the Amazon page. Anomaly is how you spell that. My producer reminded me to spell it for those of you who don't know how to spell it. Anomaly Book, Anomaly, anomalybook.com. Anyway, that was actually, I think that book is what led to my getting a radio gig, because I did so many radio interviews for that book to explain it and what my concept of anomalistics, what that means. It's not really my concept, but it's a concept that I like and that I adopted my own reasoning. So, yes, I love, and I've done a couple shows on books, like what are your favorite books? I love books. I love writing them. I love reading them. And I have a few people that I consider heroes, people that I aspire to be like. I am thrilled today to have one of them with us. Now, he is not like necessarily a political writer in the traditional sense. He writes, his writing style is just absolutely fascinating. Anyway, his name, and maybe you've heard of him. I don't know. I'm sure you've actually heard, I think it's his cousin or something like that, is the comedian Paula Poundstone. But William Poundstone is who we're having on the show today, and he is one heck of a writer. He has written multi bestseller. I mean, I think he's got like 10 different books he's written, and most of them have been bestsellers at some time or another. If you've heard of any of them, I would imagine that you've probably heard of Fortune's Formula, the untold story of the scientific betting system that beat the casinos and Wall Street. Fascinating book. He also wrote a great book that I highly recommend called Gaming the Vote, Why Elections Aren't Fair and What We Can Do About It, essentially talking about, how our voting system, the actual mathematics, this is something that is near and dear to my heart that I've been following since the late 90s. I was, when I was in grad school, I was fortunate enough to be invited to George Mason University to attend a public choice economics outreach seminar. And public choice economics deals with these type of issues. It applies economic methods to political science. And one of the issues they talk about is instant runoff voting, proportional representation, which in many ways are superior to what we have, which is called first past the post voting. Anyway, all of that is detailed in his book, Gaming the Vote. He also has another book called Priceless. This is a fascinating book. It's called Priceless, The Myth of Fair Value and How to Take Advantage of It. And it's basically, he basically exposes the fact that whatever something is priced at, sure, you have to factor in your costs or whatever, but most of it is largely made up, especially in the information age. Like when you buy something like an iTunes song or whatever, there's not a lot to it. Once you've made it, it's just you can print it forever. Anyway, he really covers fascinating things. And one of the books actually that I really enjoyed is another, and this is one of his earlier books. I think this is from, I'm trying to find out, 1988. So he's been writing for a while. It's called Labyrinths of Reason, Paradox, Puzzles, and the Frailty of Knowledge. And this is something that is near and dear to my heart because, again, I talked about it in Anomaly. So this guy is absolutely fascinating. I would certainly prick up your ears and listen. We're going to get him here in the next couple minutes. But what I would suggest, just listen. Feel free to call in if you have questions. This guy has got a real breadth of knowledge. I mean, if you've read his book, certainly call in. I wouldn't blame you for wanting to call in and say hi to him and let him in. But if you haven't, he really is absolutely fascinating. His website, I believe, is home.williampoundstone.net. Again, home.williampoundstone, POUNDSTONE.net. I would certainly check it out. He is just a really, really great writer. And we'll have him on with us shortly. So I do also in the second hour, we'll keep him on for about 45 minutes or so. I want to, in the second hour, kind of open things up. I'll open it up. What do you want to talk about? I have some interesting clips about basically proving the media bias against Ron Paul last week in Iowa, which I think you might find interesting. But otherwise, I want to open it up. I want to get in touch with you guys and see how you're doing. Is this economy just killing you too? I mean, to me, it feels like I really feel like that I'm working twice as hard and making half as much, and maybe you're having the same situation. And I'm just so sick of these politicians pretending like they have anything to do with job creation. All they have to do, the only thing their relevance to the economy is in terms of really limiting and destroying jobs through licensing and all these stupid hoops and taxes and all that kind of stuff. So in the second hour, I most certainly want to cover that. But I would like to get to our guest as soon as possible. Like I said, I mean, really, I love having a radio show because it allows me to talk to people who would probably never, ever talk to me in any other circumstance. I'm not saying that Mr. Poundstone's not a nice guy. I'm sure he's a very nice man. But what I'm saying is that this is a real, real joy for me. His books are so amazing. The first one that I got, and maybe you got too, was Fortune's Formula. I know that was certainly a big hit for him. But for me, it's particularly fascinating because I actually have a Master of Science degree in financial engineering. And this book started to kind of take my stride working in investment and mortgage banking, and it's just a brilliant piece of literature. And his writing style is absolutely fascinating because it's very well researched, but at the same time, it's like telling a story. He really takes complex subjects and makes it very, very accessible. So without further ado, I want to bring on our guest, Mr. Poundstone. Are you there?
Yes, I certainly am.
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Yes, well, I'm glad to be with you.
Now, what should I call you? Mr. Poundstone, William?
No, everyone calls me Bill. We just use William on the books because it sounds more literary, I guess.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I have to say, I want to talk about a couple of your books. I brought you on here, one, because I'm a huge fan of your work, but I want to turn people onto your work. You're really a fascinating writer because you manage to talk about subjects. You're not really political in your writing so much, but you manage to talk about subjects that kind of reach into politics and present it in such a brilliant way. For example, Fortune's Formula, my last name is Shannon, and I'm also, I've worked in mathematics, so I'm aware of who Claude Shannon is. Mm-hmm. But you really bring him to life in Fortune's Formula, and you really expose people to the breadth of his ideas. Those people who may know who he is only know him as this little, information science genius, but you really bring it to life in Fortune's Formula. Maybe you could, I'm sure you can describe your book better than I can, the nutshell version. What is Fortune's Formula all about?
Well, it basically started when I was in college. I went to MIT where Claude Shannon was a professor, and he was famous. He was the founder of information theory back in the 1940s. And originally that was this very technical field, but as the years passed, it became the basis of computers and the Internet. So really, he became more and more relevant as time went on, and, he got all these honorary degrees and everything. But the funny thing was, you never saw Shannon on campus. And if you ask why that was, you got this story. It was said that he somehow got the crazy idea that he could use his mathematical theory of information to make money in the stock market. And he had actually made a fortune with his investments, and then he kind of used that wealth to drop out of the scientific world. He really didn't come into his office much. Instead, he stayed home and lived his version of the ideal life, which, again, in the MIT urban legend, was said to consist of building like weird machines and robots in his basement workshop. So there was this wonderfully colorful story there. I didn't know whether to believe it or not. So I thought that would make a great book to sort of investigate that. And it turns out that some of his ideas really did have a lot of relevance to investors and hedge funds and stuff like that. So it really evolved into this really great sort of story.
Yeah, for people who have any training in finance, it's absolutely fascinating because, one of the kind of dogmas, what did you call them in your book? The efficient market
hypothesis. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but you called them like the efficient market mafia or something.
Oh, the efficient market Costa Nostra.
Costa Nostra, and it's so true.
Yeah.
It is so true because really the efficient market is just so full of holes, and there's a lot of anomalies that really people just. It's still taught in all grad schools. It's the craziest thing, and your approach, well, the approach that you lay out with regards to Shannon really illuminates so much about finance theory in this. You went to MIT. What is your background? Because you really do have a deep understanding of these things. I mean, I noticed that as well in Priceless. You really have a deep understanding of finance. What's your academic background?
It was actually in physics, which in a way was kind of a great thing because, it tells you really how to analyze information and think about almost anything.
Okay, well, hold on just a second, Bill. We've got a commercial break. I can't control the commercials. We'll come back in a minute. I want to talk more to William Poundstone. Fascinating stuff. Come on back.
AM 630, K-Talk. Honest talk, serious solutions.
Got plugged up or slow draining plumbing? This week, Whipple Service Champions will unplug any drain for just $99. Call 877-WHIPPLE. We have all the permanent solutions. We can jet lines from 2,500 pounds per square inch of water pressure, blasting out even large roots to the full diameter of your pipe. With our underwater camera, we can see settling, breaks, and roots. We can install a liner that is stronger than the original pipe inside of the old pipe with little or no digging. If your old pipe is collapsed and can't be lined, we can burst it and pull in a new high-density polyethylene pipe in place of the old. It all starts with this week's special. $99 will unplug any drain. Call Whipple Service Champions. I'm Kent Whipple, and I personally guarantee your 100% satisfaction or you don't pay. Call 877-WHIPPLE. That's 877-WHIPPLE. After all, you do deserve the very best.
Whipple they come, plumbing troubles are gone.
Let's be real. Smoking sucks. It's a nasty, expensive, unattractive, and thoroughly unhealthy habit. There's the acrid smell in your clothes and on your breath. Yuck. Not to mention the increased health risk that cigarette smoke presents to those nearest and dearest to you. Call Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis now for your free consultation to learn how you can quit today. 801-738-5390. That's Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis, 801-738-5390.
Did you know the IRS is dramatically increasing the number of audits they're going to perform this year? Will you be next? If you want to bulletproof your tax return and still take advantage of all the deductions you're entitled to, call the real tax professionals at Hal Rosen CPA. Call 801-288-1222. They take the fear and worry out of preparing your tax returns. Their office is open year-round to serve you, and all tax returns are reviewed by a qualified CPA. There's no need to fear the IRS when your tax returns are done properly. Call 801-288-1222. 801-288-1222.
The Voice of Utah. AM 630 K-Talk.
K-Talk.com.
Number one for the most live, local, two-way talk.
I always feel like someone is watching me, and I have no privacy.
All right, well, that's true now with the Patriot Act, I suppose. We are back here, Mental Self-Defense Radio. I'm your host, Jake Shannon. We are speaking with Bill Poundstone. If you are looking him up on Amazon.com to buy all his books, which you should do, it's William Poundstone, but we'll call him Bill. Are you still there with us, sir?
Yeah, I sure am.
Okay, so you were talking, so you actually went to MIT for physics, so that's quite impressive.
Yeah, and of course I heard an awful lot about Shannon there, so it was really great later in life to be able to kind of go back and really find out all this stuff.
So, and physics, you know, they call it, what do they call it, the queen or the king of all the sciences, insofar as, I mean, I know that economics largely has physics envy. You know, I mean, everything is, I have a master's degree in financial engineering, which for those who don't know is basically financial mathematics and derivatives and things of that nature. And everything is trying to be like physics. So I now that makes sense to me why, like Priceless. Priceless is a fascinating book. Did that grow out of what you learned in Fortune's Formula, or how did you get interested in all this, you know, what do they call it? Psychophysics? Is that what the term is?
Actually, it came from reading about two rather brilliant psychologists, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in economics, actually, even though he wasn't an economist. But it just seemed that whenever I read anything about their research, it was always just totally fascinating. So I sort of had it in the back of my mind that it would be great if someday I could do a book about them and sort of go into some of their stuff. And as I began researching that, I found out that the whole psychology of price was one of the things that they were investigating. For instance, you know, you walk into a supermarket, you see all these products, all these prices, and you make all these snap judgments about whether that's too much to pay for ketchup, or whether, you know, $10 for $10 for 10 cans of something is a good deal. And most of these things, we think we're being very logical, but really you're doing it very automatically. And that's one of the things that Kahneman and Tversky investigated. And what's interesting is that a lot of their findings have begun to be applied by a lot of businesses now. And actually, Kahneman wasn't, you know, really crazy about that, but, you know, what can you do? There's now this whole profession called price consultants. And they really use all the digital data we've got now of you know, what is purchased at such and such a price, plus this new psychology, to really, you know, convince people to buy something, to pay more for a little bit less of something. And it's something you see all around you, so it is kind of fun that you can now, go in a restaurant or look at a restaurant or go in a menu or look at a menu and really explain all these little tricks that they use to get you to buy something.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And one of the things that it really kind of dislodged in my brain was it makes me a little skeptical about intellectual property in a way. Mm-hmm. Because for so much of, economics is talking about scarcity, right? Mm-hmm. If you understand economics as the study of the distribution of goods and services that are scarce, mm-hmm. Well, what do you do today in the digital age? I mean, electrons aren't so scarce. You can, e-books, say, Kindle and whatnot. It's fascinating how how this is all kind of tied together. And what I love about your books is they really challenge the reader. They kind of dislodge these standard models of thinking, these paradigms, and get people understanding things in a way. You really have this ability to communicate complex subjects in a very accessible way. And one of the things I was really excited, I don't know how to tell you how much of a fan of your books I am, because the other book that I really like too is Gaming the Vote.
Oh, yeah.
I love it because I had been turned on to this and been trying to tell people about, first past the post voting is kind of a joke, and I'm the chairman of a third party here in Utah as well. And so as such, I'm trying to wake people up to the fact that, this Republican-Democrat thing is built in, that we can't get rid of that until we actually change the actual method of voting. And, yeah, it's a little tedious because the math involved, but maybe you could explain to people, about instant runoff voting, proportional representation. How is that different, and how did you really stumble onto that to write Gaming the Vote?
Yeah, the origin of that particular book, I had read about Kenneth Arrow, another Nobel Prize-winning economist, who proved this famous theorem called Arrow's impossibility theorem. But what it actually says in simple English is that basically there's no way of voting that is completely fair. And you can show that there's going to be some problem with any way of counting and tallying votes. And I'm not talking about, actual fraud. I'm talking about just the mathematics of it. There will be situations where you can show that the winner by any sort of system is going to be in some sense or other unfair. But that doesn't mean that all ways of voting are equal. Some are much, much better than others. And unfortunately, one of the things that they've been able to show is that the plurality vote, the one we have where it's one person, one vote, and whoever gets the most votes wins, that is actually about the least fair way of voting that's ever been invented. And part of the problem is what we call spoilers. I mean, you may have two major parties, but if you've got a third party that takes votes away from one of them, you can sometimes lead to a situation where it's obviously the less popular of the two major candidates who ends up winning. And that's unfair to everyone. I mean, it's unfair to the third party because it really, you get all these people resenting third parties and saying, you shouldn't be running on a third party. You should pick the major party you want. But what that really demonstrates is that our two-party system is really an unintended consequence of the plurality vote. It's basically what you have to do to actually get elected with this particular way of voting. But there are many, many other ways of voting that are much better and which don't have this penalty on third parties. One of them you mentioned is called instant runoff voting. Now, in that, and maybe I should apologize, all of these voting systems are a little tough to get your mind around. It's probably not the easiest thing to explain on the radio, but I'll certainly try. Basically, you rank the candidates in order of preference. So you say, this is my number one choice, this is my number two choice, number three choice, and so on. And the first thing they do in counting the votes is that they put the votes in stacks. I mean, they don't have to literally do that, but you can think of it that way, based on who is the number one choice. And they look to see if anyone has a clear majority of the number one choice. If that person does, they win just as they would with a standard plurality vote. But in the situation where no one has the majority, then they look at the person who has the shortest stack, the candidate who has the fewest number of number one votes. And you eliminate that candidate from consideration. Now, you don't toss away those ballots. Instead, you look at everyone's second choice in that stack, and you transfer the votes to their second choice candidate. And then once again, you tally and see if anyone's got, a clear majority. If so, that person wins. If not, you repeat the process, eliminating the one with the fewest number of votes again. Now, assuming you can understand that at all on the radio, but I mean, if you do sit down, think about it a little, it's probably going to sound pretty fair. And in many situations, it is fair. It certainly would be impeccable if you've got the type of elections we usually have, which is two major parties and some rather small third-party candidates. It does get into trouble, though, where you have three strong candidates. In situations like that, you can show that there is a tendency to squeeze out a candidate in the middle rather unfairly. So the people who study these things generally are not really crazy about instant runoff voting, but certainly it's much better than what we've got now. And there are still other systems like approval voting, where you can cast one vote for as many of the candidates as you want. So, if you want to vote for a Republican and a Libertarian, you can do that. And you try to cast your votes in such a way that you think will have the greatest impact on the election. That's pretty simple, and in many ways, I think that's a better choice than instant runoff. There's also one called range voting, which is actually something that you see on the Internet a lot, on those situations where you rate a movie or something by giving it so many stars, and then they show you the average rating. You can do the same thing with candidates, and in some ways you can show that that's mathematically maybe the best system of all. So, and again, as I go into the book, there's all these different groups of people trying to promote each version of voting. And I think one of the problems they've had is that there are so many good systems that are better than what we've got, but they don't. The people behind each system don't necessarily all unite together and say we've got to present a unified front to the public and explain why we've got to reform our voting system. So instead, you get a lot of squabbling, and I think a lot of people who really, don't know a whole lot about it, just hear that, people say there's problems with IRV, there's problems with approval voting, and they figure, well, we might as well stay with what we've got. But unfortunately, what we've got is really, as I say, just about the worst system.
Well, and most places in the world that do voting, they don't do first past the post like we do here. A lot of them are using proportional representation, for example, to fill their legislatures. And for those listeners who aren't aware of what proportional voting would be, well, it's very simple. Let's say you have a population of 100 people, 10 of them are Libertarian, 10 are Constitution Party, and then the remainders are split between Democrats and Republicans. Well, then you'd have 10% of your legislature made up of Libertarians, 10% made of the Constitution Party, and the appropriate proportions made up of the Democrats and Republicans. It's a very fair system where people actually get represented. But you really you span the breadth. You talk to all the experts in gaming the vote. Well, how do we actually affect the change here, though? I mean, is it doing what you did, writing a book and educating people and turning them on, or is there something additionally that maybe listeners could get involved with?
Well, certainly, there are many organizations that are trying to promote these various types of voting systems. If you'll just, Google instant runoff voting, approval voting, range voting, you'll see the various organizations. It certainly would help to join those organizations, try to give them some funds if you have, that kind of money and are motivated to do so. Again, I think the problem is that the people in politics, if they're in a position of power now, they've come to that position by the current system, plurality voting, and they kind of figure, I'm doing okay now, what's in it for me? And unfortunately, I think we just have to make them a little more receptive to what the people want and what is fair.
So it's kind of the same challenges with like tax reform or almost anything.
Yeah, almost anything. Again, there's a huge inertia in our political system, so it really does take a lot of these kind of grassroots activists to really get into this. Now, the systems I were describing are for a single winner thing, for something like a president or a governor or something. But again, I want to emphasize what you just said, proportional representation. There's really very little controversy about that. I mean, almost everyone agrees that proportional representation would be, a huge improvement over the system we've got now. There's been good mathematical systems for achieving it since the 19th century. And again, I can't really credit anything but this inertia for the fact that we don't have proportional representation.
Yeah, it is a shame because I know so many people feel left out of the current political process. And, some people blame it on one party or they blame it on the media. And I think that's fair in certain circumstances. But a lot of it is because the actual way the system is set up. It's almost set up to be this way, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, my argument always is that, since Congress has to make laws which apply to everyone, you can't guarantee that everyone is happy with the law, but at least you could guarantee with proportional representation that someone representing your point of view was in Congress and was part of the debate. And now you don't necessarily have that.
Yeah, it's shocking that something as important as this, and almost it seems simple to understand, is not common knowledge. And that's why I love your books, because you really bring to light these things that seem so commonsensical, so obvious, yet nobody else is talking about it. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's a good question. With all of these books, I start out amusing myself, looking into a particular field that I haven't read a whole lot about, but which seems really interesting. And I hope to convey that and get other people excited about it. So, that's really all you can do.
Now you've written 12 books so far, is that right?
I think it's 13 now, yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's impressive. What, are you working on something right now?
Yeah, I'm actually got one coming out this January titled, Are You Smart Enough to Work at Google? And it's about these crazy job interview questions that a lot of companies ask now. Things like, how would you weigh your own head?
Yeah.
You're sitting in a job interview and you have to answer that.
Yeah, an aside, I don't mean to interrupt, but, when I worked in quantitative finance, I worked for I had job interviews with companies like Barra and these other.
Oh, they're notorious for it.
Yeah, and they would add, one of them was, you have, what was it? It was like you had 9 coins and you could only do 2 weighings, and one of the coins is different weight.
And
I nailed it. I was surprised I actually nailed it without knowing the actual trick. But yeah, quantitative finance is well known for that. I didn't know that Google was doing the same type of stuff.
Yeah. In fact, this really came about a few years back. I started getting emails from old friends who said that they'd been on a job interview and they were asked this sort of brain teaser type question, like the weighing of the coins or whatever. And I've always sort of had a reference to my friends as someone who's good at these kind of logic puzzles. So they were basically asking me what the correct answer was so that they'd know if they gave the right one. Because usually they don't even tell you if you've got the right answer.
Right.
So after I got a few of these emails, it occurred to me, I love these type of questions, so it would be fun to do a book on this and kind of describe the questions, how it came about, and, of course, give the actual answers.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I know one guy, there's a book called Heard on the Street. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yes.
But it's basically that, but it's more of a workbook. It's not like you're writing. It's just, here's the question they ask, here's the answer.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Now, we're coming up against another commercial break. I know that your time is valuable, and I don't want to waste your time. I'm just thrilled to have you on, but I'm hoping you can hang on for one more segment. I want to ask you about your books, Big Secrets and Bigger Secrets. I know you had them put together and re-released as a book, right?
Yes,
both books together.
The Big Book of Big Secrets, yes.
Yeah, and it kind of gets into, I don't know what you'd call it, maybe conspiracy or not conspiracy, but obscure knowledge, that things that you didn't know. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that when we come back from the break. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Well, for those of you just tuning in, we're talking to William Poundstone. He prefers Bill, but if you're looking him up on Amazon, look up William Poundstone. You can't go wrong. All of his books are awesome. I'm just telling you. If you're a fan of this show, go get his books. We'll come back, find out more about Bigger Secrets. Come on back. K-Talk, the voice of Utah.
AM 630, K-Talk. Utah's independent radio voice for 45 years.
Tune in on Sundays at 4 p.m. to learn the latest cutting-edge science of health with your hosts Hugo Rodier, MD, and Gary Olson, DC, on the Integrative Health Show, sponsored by Pioneer Comprehensive Medical Clinic in Draper. Our country is suffering from poor health due to nutritional, environmental, and stress problems. Learn how to address these problems and not rely on symptomatic treatments that often have too many side effects. The Integrative Health Show, Sundays at 4 p.m. on K-Talk AM 630.
Only one Salt Lake restaurant is #1 for their award-winning halibut and chips. The same restaurant was even voted best chowder in Utah. It's Summer Hayes Halibut and Chips and Holiday. At Summer Hayes Halibut, we have seafood Louis salads, coconut shrimp and chips, fresh crab cakes, grilled salmon, calamari, and fresh-made crab bisque, plus burgers, turkey and chicken sandwiches, smoothies, and even fried Twinkies. See the entire menu at summerhayshalibut.com. Treat yourself to the fresh taste of the best Alaskan halibut in the heart of holiday across from Macy's. Summer Hayes Halibut and Chips. For lunch and dinner, Monday through Saturday, Salt Lake's best seafood, Summer Hayes Halibut and Chips.
63% of Americans are overweight. If you've decided it's time to leave your flat behind, HipFit Weight Loss is for you. HipFit changes habits. Lose the bad habits, lose the weight. HipFit is guaranteed to make your weight loss successful and has absolutely no health risks. HipFit students are not required to count calories, weigh portions, or buy specialty food. Start losing weight immediately. Call 801-635-4488. HipFit is conveniently located at Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis. Ask about our Guaranteed to Stop Smoking program. 801-635-4488.
A crime has been committed against humanity. 1 in 3 Americans during their lifetime will be the victims of this atrocity. During the 1920s, 3 scientists of world renown brought to the world a discovery of unprecedented proportions. The cure for cancer. And the cure was suppressed. The Supreme Court of Massachusetts referred to this suppression as a moral crime of the very worst kind. The cure was coveted, the scientists destroyed, and the art of suppression warfare was born. Listen to the 46-minute online presentation, Cancer and the Art of Suppression Warfare, that dares to reveal the facts at suppressionwarfare.com. Suppressionwarfare.com. That's suppressionwarfare.com.
The voice of Utah. AM 630 K-Talk.
K-Talk.com.
#1 for the most live, local, two-way talk.
Welcome back, Mental Self-Defense Radio. I'm your host, Jake Shannon. I've got on the line with us Bill Poundstone. You might know him better as William Poundstone. He is a very prolific and one of my favorite authors. I'm just, when I get a guest that I am this excited about, I try not to embarrass myself by gushing too much, but his stuff, you really can't go wrong. Fascinating books. The first book I stumbled on was Labyrinths of Reason. Again, a subject that I just am very fond of, epistemology, or how do we know what we know, and what are the limits of our own human knowledge. And man, are you still with us, Bill?
Yeah, sure.
I really appreciate your time. Now, before the break, I was curious about your Bigger Secrets books. I mean, I'm familiar with them, but for those who haven't read them, what is the scope and what is the nature of the books?
Yeah, it's 3 books. They're all sort of pop culture secrets, like the formula for Coca-Cola, how magicians do their various illusions, all sorts of stuff like that. Really very fun books where I actually investigated and found all these sort of American trade secrets and kind of had to put a fun spin on it.
And the first one came out in 1983. Is that right?
Yes, you're revealing my age there. That was my first book.
Yeah, your work is really fascinating. You also wrote a book, and this is one I haven't read, but looks fascinating to me. The Recursive Universe. What is that all about?
There's a mathematician by the name of John Conway who came up with this early, it's called a computer game, but I mean it's really not like Worlds of Warcraft or something like that. It's a simple sort of computer animation that sort of simulates physics on your computer screen. And he was able to show that you can have fantastically complicated phenomena in this particular computer game. You could even have like a form of life that would reproduce itself. So he really investigated this. It was quite fascinating, particularly for that era. And I use that as sort of a springboard for discussing a lot of these sort of deep questions in, philosophy and physics.
I see. So it's kind of a little bit like maybe Benoit Mandelbrot's ideas of recursion and fractal geometry. Is that?
Yeah, it certainly has a similarity to that. I think if you like his sort of stuff, you'd enjoy it.
Oh, fascinating. Well, yeah, I'm absolutely. I find it rare. People who listen to my show will tell you it's rare when I find somebody that I just agree with on a lot of stuff, and so I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on the show. Now, you said you went to school at MIT,
mm-hmm.
So how come you're writing these books? Why aren't you teaching or working at NASA or?
I actually always had the idea in my back of my mind that it would be great to be a professional author and get into writing. So after college, I went into editing a few years, and then I sold my first book, which was Big Secrets, and I've been writing ever since. I really love it.
I see. And what I think is fascinating about your style is it's not you tackle these very heady subjects, and I can tell that your research is impeccable, but you also intersperse it with interviews. So do you actually, for example, in the making of Gaming the Vote, do you jump on a plane or do you pick up a phone and call these people? And is this how you're getting these interviews for these books?
Yeah, definitely. I went and saw most of the major people in terms of voting theory and so forth, which is certainly part of the fun, getting to meet these people. In that case, I remember there was a lot of kind of snide innuendo about, or a proponent of one voting system talking about the guy who's promoting some other voting system. And you see a little bit of that in the book. So you work the human element into the story, definitely.
Well, that's one of the things that I find funny about scientists is they seem to try to spend their entire life becoming congruent with logic and reason and science and whatnot, but they fail to understand that they are human too, and that their own biases and perspectives and squabbles as such tend to bias their outcomes. And
those squabbles are definitely a mainspring of my books too. So I know what you mean.
Fascinating stuff. Well, if people are interested in following you, what is the best way of keeping up to date on your projects? And I don't know if you're doing if you do like the lecture circuit or anything like that.
Yeah, I do lectures from time to time. I would go to my website, which is home.williampoundstone.net. You'll get information about the latest books, and I'll put stuff there for lectures and so forth.
Yeah, and I'm actually on your website, and you are cousins with the comedian Paula Poundstone.
I certainly am, yes.
It's absolutely, it is fascinating.
Well, there aren't many Poundstones out there, actually.
And so what is the deal with Larry David, the guy from Curb Your Enthusiasm? What's the connection with him?
I have a friend who is a producer who worked with him. At some point he decided he did not want to keep this cat he had, so it was offered to me. And I turned it down, too much responsibility.
So you both have in common that you didn't want the cat.
Yes, I guess that's it.
It's a very fun website. I really appreciate your time again. Home.williampoundstone.net. Bill, I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
And I look forward to hopefully talking to you again in the future.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, take care. Good luck with your new book.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, a real smart guy. I don't know how to better describe him. Fascinating stuff. Please go buy his books if you can. Again, Amazon.com. I've got 4 of them right here that I brought with me. Fortunately, I think I have enough of it committed to memory that I was able to have a semi-decent discussion with him. The guy is fascinating. Again, William Poundstone. Just type it into the Amazon.com page and you can find all his books. I really liked Fortune's Formula. That's probably, if I were to recommend it, I would probably start with that book. But then again, I am a quantitative finance nerd, so that would bias things a little bit. Labyrinths of Reason is really fascinating stuff for those of you who are interested in the question of, how do we know what we know? Fascinating, man. Whew. I got to say, I love my job when sometimes I get all frazzled and stressed out because of the day's events, and I get mad about these politicians and, big government and big corporations getting in our ways, just, denying us from being who we are and being, with our families and just living a simple life. But it really makes it worth it to be able to share somebody like that with you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, we've got about 7 minutes until we hit that long break. I'm going to give you the numbers again. 801-254-5855. That's in Salt Lake County. 801-670-5855 in Weber and North Davis. Our Provo line, Utah County, is down. So, again, 801-254-5855 or 670-5855. If the lines are busy, please call back. If the phone is ringing, that means we are busy with probably somebody else on the other line or trying to get something done here. Just be patient. I want to hear from you. I'm curious if you, what you think about this. It seems like there's a lot of hubbub about Ron Paul and it being denied media coverage. I mean, it really was egregious. It was really bad. Like, so much so that, do you watch Jon Stewart? Jon Stewart's kind of hit and miss. His brother is in charge of the New York Stock Exchange. I don't know if you know that or not. So some of his stuff tends to, he deals with kids' gloves on some things with regards to the economy. And I can understand. That's his brother. He doesn't, his brother's the head of that organization. I can't knock him. But, I do have to say that from time to time, man, Jon Stewart really just knocks it right out of the park. He really, I don't know, he's a funny guy. It's not like Bill Maher. Like, Bill Maher is just, I really don't even laugh. Like, I tried to watch one of his stand-up things, and it's just not even funny. I thought his Religulous movie was okay. Well, it wasn't that great, but it was okay. It wasn't awful. But his TV show I can't watch. But Jon Stewart, I also like Stephen Colbert, man. That guy, oh my goodness, he makes me laugh. Anyway, I thought I'd play this for you. It's pretty funny. I saw it's a clip from Jon Stewart's TV program.
Presidential politics. Shake-up in Republican Village. New candidates in, old candidates out, losing candidates winning, crazy candidates staying. And it all happened here. Ames, Iowa. Founded in 1632 by Willie Ames. Yes. Once again, Ames, Iowa in the spotlight as the results of the 2011 Iowa straw poll are in.
With 16,892 Iowans voting, the winner of the 2011 Iowa straw poll is Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann.
Whoa, there you go! I see we have a lot of Pawlenty supporters in the audience this evening. Bachmann wins! The ayes, or shall I say, the crazy eyes have it. Michelle Bachmann's 4,823 votes, narrowly clipping Ron Paul with 4,671. No one else even close.
And that's totally true. I mean, really, nobody was even close. And it's just so funny to watch how the media spins this. I'll let him continue.
Fighting victory and looking for someone to throw cold water on it in 3, 2, boom! Former George Bush strategist Matthew Dowd.
Ames has never had a history of picking winners, but they've definitely had a history of picking losers.
And they picked you, Michelle Bachmann of Minnesota. So you won. Loser. But what of the actual losers of the poll? They must be celebrating their not winning.
We needed to get some lift to continue on and to have a pathway forward. That didn't happen, so I'm announcing this morning on your show that I'm going to be ending my campaign for president.
Here's the problem with that guy in Iowa. Anytime he's around, you cannot operate heavy farm machinery.
It's true. I don't know how he got, they talk about having to be charismatic and whatnot, and that shouldn't necessarily be a qualifier for being the right person for the job. But yeah, that guy, Pawlenty or whatever, snooze fest.
Sir, stop talking. I have to work my crops. So the Republicans move into the fall with Michelle Bachmann, the big story. What was that? That laugh so familiar, so regional. I can't place it. It can't be. He's not eligible to run again.
I declare to you today as a candidate for President of the United States. Sometimes it kind of takes me a while to get into something like this presidential race, but let me tell you, when I'm in all the way.
Why?
He's, of course, that's Perry, the former governor of Texas, or the current governor of Texas.
Would the Josh Brolin character from W be running for What? That's a real guy? No. I interviewed him? Oh. 3-term Texas governor. Well, I'm sure I'm overreacting. 2 Texas governors who sort of sound alike. How similar could they be?
They're 2 guys from West Texas. Same kind of ideology, same Texas boots. Both have ranches.
Similar mannerisms.
Some of that West Texas swagger.
Former Air Force pilot and father of 2.
Met his wife in elementary school.
Rick Perry holds a day of prayer.
He carries a pistol with him, laser-fired pistol. He is George Bush on steroids.
No, he's not. He's not George Bush on steroids. Rick Perry is what happens if
Yeah, let me tell you, Rick Perry really is a disaster. I really feel good about the prospects, though, for Liberty. If it does end up going between Bachmann and Perry, because I mean Bachmann is a former IRS tax litigator, and Perry, I mean, I played yesterday that clip. That guy has been so awful for the Texas economy. Ron Paul really has a shot at this. He really does, despite the media bias. Now, Jon Stewart really hasn't got going on that. This is one of the funniest things I've ever seen on that show. I'll play that clip for you when we come back at the top of the hour. Stick with us. Mental Self-Defense Radio. I'm your host, Jake Shannon on K-Talk, Voice of Utah. Come on back after the break, folks.
AM 630, K-Talk. When you're talking ethics, integrity, and honesty, you're talking K-Talk.
Hello, this is Dan the Laptop Man from PC Laptops. Once a year, we scour every corner of our distribution warehouse and stores. Countless sleepless nights digging and prodding with no rock left unturned in our entire empire. What does that mean to you? It's our back-to-school Ultra Deluxe Warp Turbo Mega Sale with up to 75% off the original prices on the best desktop and laptop computers on the planet. Demos, scratch and dents, blowout models, funny colored discontinued computers, and more for up to 75% off the original prices. Have I lost my mind?
No, mister.
I have not, because it's our once-a-year back-to-school Ultra Deluxe Warp Turbo Mega Sale with up to 75% off the original prices on the best desktop and laptop computers on the planet. Okay, to make it extra fluffy, we're doing 0 down, 0 interest for a year on any new computer. Oh, I see. Show your student or faculty ID for an extra $100 off any computer. Call us at 1-877-596-SAVE or check us out at PCLaptops.com. PC Laptops, hurry, you must make haste.
Wake up without yuck in your lungs or the dark cloud of lung cancer or heart disease looming over your future. Have the energy and health you deserve by simply calling Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis at 801-738-5390. Forget what you've seen from TV and the movies. Hypnosis is powerful and natural and has been accepted by the American Medical Association since the 1950s. Our methods have proven time and again to be more effective than pills, patches, gum, and willpower for quitting smoking. If you've tried the rest, now call the best. Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis, 801-738-5390. That's Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis, 801-738-5390. Be sure to ask about our proven weight loss and natural breast enlargement programs. Visit us online at slchypnosis.com.
You're listening to Utah's first #1 talk station. K-Talk, AM 630, KTKK, Sandy, Salt Lake City. The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
CNN Radio, I'm Jim Ribble. Top story this hour, the leaders of France and Germany met today to come up with a way to deal with the European debt crisis. They came away with 3 proposals. CNN's Nina Dos Santos reports one of them would have the European Union member nations agree to more integrated economic policies.
The 17 members of the Eurozone will have to adopt a golden rule to balance their budget deficits against anemic economic growth. Germany's economic growth almost flatlined. Today we learned also France had economic growth that was flat for the second quarter of the year.
Evidently, the European leaders didn't do enough, though, to stabilize the euro to satisfy investors on Wall Street. Investors apparently were hoping for bigger plans to contain the European debt crisis. Near the close, the Dow was down some 77 points after falling more than 100 points earlier. The latest government figures for housing starts and new home permits dropped in July. CNN's Cheryl Castro reports the housing market's still in a hole.
The National Association of Home Builders' David Cruz says demand is affected by job insecurity. On the supply side, he says foreclosures are the problem.
There's so much foreclosures and short sales and other distressed sales competing against new homes. So there's not a lot of reason to start additional homes.
Cheryl Castro, CNN.
President Obama took his bus tour to Iowa today, telling a rural audience that some members of Congress are putting partisan politics ahead of the country's well-being. Texas Governor and Republican presidential candidate Rick Perry also in Iowa today. He says President Obama is the greatest threat to the U.S. economy.
I don't think the folks of Iowa are going to be real excited about unemployment rate where it is and the number of Americans are out of work. And, you know, this president's been an abject failure when it comes to the economy.
Santa Monica College in California was locked down for a while today. There were reports of a gunman on campus, but now a college spokesman says no shooter was found and the lockdown is lifted. For news anytime, go to CNN.com. This is CNN Radio.
There are a million reasons Staples makes going back to school easy. Today's reason? Their incredible selection of Windows laptops, perfect for your student. Now you don't have to hear.
You're giving me your old laptop, Mom? It's so big.
Or
the X key is missing. That's not an important letter.
Or our favorite.
Mom, what is a floppy disk?
So go to Staples for powerful and portable laptops from HP, Dell, and Toshiba. Even the amazing Samsung Princeton with the new Intel Core technology. Staples. That was easy.
Want to save money on back to school? Then come to Walmart, where they have low prices every day on everything, like delicious Honey Nut Cheerios. Honey Nut Cheerios has whole grain oats that provide kids with energy to start their day, and kids who eat breakfast tend to do better in school. Maybe get them on the honor roll, perhaps into the gifted program and potentially a full college scholarship, saving you thousands of dollars in tuition. Not a bad deal, if you ask me. Plus, it's one of more than 70 items at Walmart that gives you 4 box tops during August, so you can give more cash to your favorite school. Save money. Live better. Walmart.
With the price of gas skyrocketing, I'm glad the Sears Auto Center offered me advice on which types of motor oil can help reduce engine friction and improve my car's efficiency, which is something I could really use right now.
Head into Sears Auto Center for an oil change, brake inspection, and tire rotation for only $29.99. All that for only $29.99. Plus, save on all Bridgestone and Michelin tires through August 20th. And auto batteries are as low as $49.98 with exchange. Sears Auto Center. Exclusions apply. See store for details.
If you're like me, you have personal belongings that you hold dear. Belongings you can't live without. It's precisely why Geico makes it easy to get renter's insurance for a really low rate. Renters can protect all their personal belongings for as little as $12 a month. What belongings do I hold dear? This karaoke machine and my vinyl record collection. You fancy a tune? Nah, I shouldn't. All right then. Are you going to Scarborough Fair?
Visit geico.com to see how affordable renter's insurance can be.
Are you feeling weighed down by clutter? Let Town Storage help you lighten up. Using a storage unit is a great way to organize your home so you can experience clutter-free living. If you're trying to sell your home or having family over for the holidays, a storage unit can really help open up your house for a quick sell or to make room for all the relatives. Town Storage has new lower prices and an on-site manager. You have 24-hour management, security, video surveillance. Town Storage is great. It's right off the freeway. There's an electronic gate. The driveways are nice and wide, so you're not having to squeeze your truck in. In fact, they can accommodate a whole 53-foot tractor trailer. They're open 7 days a week, and they even have business discounts. Wherever you live in Utah, there's a Town Storage near you. Visit townstorage.com. That's town with an E, storage.com. Or call 800-716-8917. That's 1-800-716-8917.
Mark Maxon here to tell you about Neil's Halibut and Seafood. Neil's Halibut and Seafood offers more than just perfect golden deep-fried battered halibut and cod, or grilled if you prefer, and it's always prepared the way that it should be. Neil's also offers tasty char-broiled burgers served up on gluten-free buns. I give you my word, they're good, and you can't find gluten-free just anywhere. You'll find it at Neil's. Come feast on a delicious garlic burger, barbecue bacon burger, cheeseburger, mushroom burger, and Neil's famous spicy bacon cheeseburger, and much more. If you love halibut like I do, you'll want to order the 2-piece halibut special. I like it with Neil's fresh coleslaw, and it's only $9.99. Or treat yourself to Neil's Trio. 1 grilled fish, 1 crispy fish, and 1 pulled chicken taco. 3 delicious tacos, 1 great meal. The best darn seafood you'll find anywhere. You'll keep coming back for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Neil's Halibut and Seafood, located on 123rd South, just east, off of I-15 in Draper. Ah, Neil's, Maxon loves you.
Exposing politics as pro wrestling. Welcome to Mental Self-Defense Radio and the Jake Shannon Radio program. Now, here's your host, Jake Shannon.
5-1, baby. Welcome back, Mental Self-Defense Radio. I'm your host, Jake Shannon. If you missed the first hour, I would certainly tune in. William Poundstone, your IQ will raise many, many points just by listening to that guy talk. He's so smart. Very lucky to have him on the show. Please go buy his books. It will make you smarter. It will make our world a better place. Again, just type in William Poundstone at whenever you go to like Google or Amazon. Go to Amazon.com and get his books. Just a brilliant guy. Now, before the break, I was talking about the media bias against Ron Paul. And it really didn't even escape Jon Stewart. Now, Jon Stewart, I do have to give him credit. Like I said, his brother is the head of the New York Stock Exchange, so I do think that he's a little maybe compromised in the sense that he clearly wouldn't do anything that would compromise his brother. And if you're the head of the New York Stock Exchange, that's pretty much about as establishment as you can get. But anyway, I will go give kudos where I think that they are deserved, and this clip is just hilarious. I'm going to continue to play this. Basically, Jon Stewart just goes off on the media for the clear, obvious media bias, and he backs it up with all these clips. It's hilarious. Here, give it a listen.
Just one of these. Hold still, Rick.
Hold on, I'm trying to cue it up here. Hold on a second. This was, I think, off of yesterday's Daily Show, or whatever the name of his show is on Comedy Central.
With Pellini dropping out, Rick Perry dropping in, and Michelle Bachmann and Ron Paul dominating the Ames straw poll, we got ourselves a race.
We have a top tier. It is Mitt Romney, Rick Perry, and Michelle Bachmann.
We have a new top tier, and it's Perry, Mitt Romney, and Bachmann.
There's now a top tier in this race, at least for now.
Do you notice that these talking points, they're all regurgitating the same thing? Have you ever heard if you repeat something often enough, it becomes the truth? Well, that's what's going on here. It's not the truth, but they're trying to manipulate.
Romney, Perry, and Bachmann.
I mean, I think that's fair to say. Really fair to say? You're not forgetting, I don't know, anyone, say an ideologically consistent 12-term congressman who came within less than 200 votes of winning the straw poll? Isn't anyone going to give that gentleman a little love?
There's a top tier now of Bachmann and Perry and Romney, and, we haven't mentioned, and we should.
Thank you.
We haven't mentioned, and we should, Rick Santorum, who did really surprisingly well for the amount of money and resources he had.
Rick Santorum? He didn't get half of what Ron Paul got. He lost to the guy who lost so bad he dropped out of the race. Santorum?
We're looking at Mitt Romney, who continues to be the front runner, but we have Rick Perry as well, and now Michelle Bachmann. Let's not count out Jon Huntsman, though.
What? Jon Huntsman? Huntsman got 69 votes. If all of Jon Huntsman's supporters met at the same Ames, Iowa Quiznos, the fire marshal would say, yeah, that's fine, no problem.
This is so true. Mitt Romney got like 570 or 560 votes. Huntsman got like 69, not even 70 votes. And they're being mentioned. But Ron Paul, who was basically a statistical tie, I don't know what the margin error is, but There were 17,000 votes placed, and the difference between first and second place was like 150 votes. That's like a statistical tie. Essentially, Ron Paul won. Because the other fact is Ron Paul didn't have to buy people's votes. It's absolutely, it boggles my mind. It is humorous. It would be funnier if it wasn't so sad, because so many people, they just watch the news and then they watch Entertainment Tonight. That's how they actually learn. They're not plugged in. And that's how you manipulate a democracy. Go rent Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Dissent, that documentary. I'm not even saying read the book, okay? Go just, I think you can even find it for free on the internet. Watch it. Learn. This is how democracies, how the power elite stay in power in a democracy.
There's still some tables open in the back. Huntsman was the only Mormon running in the straw poll, and he came in second amongst Mormons. And by the way, this pretending Ron Paul doesn't exist for some reason has been going on for weeks.
A new Gallup survey showing Rick Perry running second to Mitt Romney, knocking down Iowa favorite Michelle Bachmann to fourth.
Ron Paul was third.
Fourth behind who? How did Libertarian Ron Paul become the 13th floor in a hotel? Why? What's wrong with... He is Tea Party patient zero. All that small government grassroots business, he planted that grass. These other folks, they're just moral majorities in a tri-cornered hat. Ron Paul's the real deal, and Fox News should love this guy. But watch the disconnect between the debate moderators at Fox's Thursday debate and the debate audience.
Iran does not have an air force that can come here, just like we did in Iraq. Build up the war propaganda. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and they had nuclear weapons, and we had to go in. I'm sure you supported that war as well. Yeah. Okay. It's time we quit this. It's time. It's trillions of dollars we're spending on these wars.
What's with the smirk and the eye roll? The crowd goes nuts, and you do one of these. There goes crazy Uncle Ron, babbling about the unsustainability of multiple wars. He's the one guy in the field, agree with him or don't agree with him, who doesn't go out of his way to regurgitate talking points or change what he believes to fit the audience he's in front of. And you're treating him like if this were Celebrity Apprentice, he'd be this guy. By the way, at the Ames, Iowa straw poll, Busey beat Huntsman 77-69. And even when the media remember Ron Paul, it's only to reassure themselves how there's no need to remember Ron Paul.
Right now, live, right next to the bus behind us, Ron Paul is speaking. And 7 of the candidates are here today. We have live pictures of Ron Paul, but you know what? We're talking about Sarah Palin, and we're talking about Rick Perry, the two people not in the race yet, Drew.
And guess what, Paul? If you get video of Sarah Palin or get a soundbite from her, bring that back to us. You can hold the Ron Paul stuff.
right? I mean, that guy, right? We'll be right back.
Well, at least somebody is speaking the truth. And I have to give Jon Stewart credit too, because I don't think he is libertarian. Maybe he is. I really don't know. But at least he's like, this is ridiculous. It is absolutely. And the thing is, I would say that Jon Stewart's probably a Democrat. The Republicans treat him worse. Fox News. It's supposed to be like the Republican channel, right? Ron Paul won on their online poll after the Iowa debate. And they pulled it. They pulled the poll, their own poll. And so not only did they not report on the fact that Ron Paul won online, but they even pulled it. So no, it's totally scandalous. I mean, the news has a responsibility not to present. The thing that's ironic is it's not fair and balanced just because they say so. Are you that dumb? I don't think you are. I mean, but this should be just, you should be furious to be manipulated like this. Now, like I said, I credit Jon Stewart. He did a very good job there. It was really funny saying how people were treating Ron Paul like the 13th floor of a building and just ignoring the fact that it actually exists. And really? You're going to mention Rick Perry? Rick Perry wasn't even in the straw poll. But I do have to say that another one that did a good job that I felt, he doesn't agree with him, but he at least gave him the time and gave him some respect, was that Piers Morgan guy. He has that show on CNN, and he actually showed him some respect, which was nice for a change. He actually let him speak, didn't ridicule him, didn't do any what's called an ad hominem attack, ideas and weighed him on merits and let other people listen. I do have to give Piers Morgan that respect. It's just shocking to me how obvious it is, you know? I don't know. It seems obvious to me. Was it obvious to you? Did you think that... I mean, they would talk about first place, second place, and fourth place if Ron Paul was in third. They wouldn't even mention his name. It's so obvious. I wish there was some way we could affect it, because I do think ridicule, I think like what Jon Stewart's doing, I think that's a powerful thing. I think it works. Thank goodness for the internet that people can communicate in such a manner where, what they are actually interested in. I don't know. I just feel that, I really do feel this, and I'm not Republican. But I feel at this point, in the first hour we were talking with William Poundstone. There's a guy who got his physics degree from MIT, very smart guy, written 13 books, brilliant guy. And, one of the biggest problems is this voting system that we have. I'm not Republican. I don't like Republicans because all the people who were libertarians in the Republican Party left. The anniversary of that event was yesterday. That was when Nixon took us off of Bretton Woods and just started printing fiat money. That's what inspired Ron Paul to get involved in politics. That's what created, that very incident created the Libertarian Party, the third largest party according to ballot access in the United States. But the problem is it is a bit of a rigged game. The rules are set in such a way that the first party and second party are just entrenched, making it very difficult for a third party to get in. So Ron Paul went back into the Republican Party. This is the thing that drives me mad. There are these people in the Republican Party who are trying to take back the Republican Party towards the libertarian side. And I think it's a noble cause. I do think it's a noble cause. And I'm glad that they're doing it. I think it's futile, though. I think that the Republicans and the Democrats have been completely taken over by socialists, by people who are interested in big government. No Child Left Behind, a socialist program instituted by Republican President George Bush. Fact. And Obama, the left typically was supposed to be an anti-war party, but that guy's even started. I thought it would be impossible to be a worse president than George Bush. I did. I thought it would be impossible. It would literally be like the laws of physics would actually have to collapse for there to be a worse president than George W. Bush. An idiot, a guy who has no respect for the Constitution, a guy who has no respect for spending and for the economy. And then along comes Obama, and he's actually worse. And he marketed himself as the opposite. Hey, you know what? I'm going to close Guantanamo. I'm going to get us out of these wars. I'm going to get the economy. And he's done none of them. He is George Bush 2.0. It's ridiculous. And you look at these guys like Rick Perry and Romney, they are George Bush 3.0. I literally don't think the United States can take it. I don't think the United States, we are on the precipice of collapsing under our own debt. And our Senate raises the debt ceiling. So even if we do get a great president like Ron Paul, what are we going to do with all these morons in the legislature. Come on back. Sorry to rant, but it's just getting under my skin. K-Talk, Voice of Utah. Come on back after the break.
AM 630, K-Talk. We live where you live. We shop where you shop. Thanks for supporting the sponsors of K-Talk Radio.
Let's be real. Smoking sucks. It's a nasty, expensive, unattractive, and thoroughly unhealthy habit. There's the acrid smell in your clothes and on your breath. Yuck. Not to mention the increased health risk that cigarette smoke presents to those nearest and dearest to you. Call Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis now for your free consultation to learn how you can quit today. 801-738-5390. That's Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis, 801-738-5390.
4 years ago, Noemi's husband found work in America. To make ends meet, Noemi needed to find work.
Basically, I needed to get a better English, to increase my skills, to find better experience.
That's when she found Deseret Industries.
They taught me how to be a supervisor.
Every time you donate goods to Deseret Industries, you give people like Noemi the chance to learn valuable job and life skills.
Deseret Industries was really wonderful with me.
Deseret Industries, getting the most out of what you've given.
Tune in on Sundays at 4 p.m. to learn the latest cutting-edge science of health with your hosts Hugo Rodier, MD, and Gary Olson, DC, on the Integrative Health Show sponsored by Pioneer Comprehensive Medical Clinic in Draper. Our country is suffering from poor health due to nutritional, environmental, and stress problems. Learn how to address these problems and not rely on symptomatic treatments that often have too many side effects. The Integrative Health Show, Sundays at 4 p.m. on K-Talk AM 630.
The Voice of Utah. AM 630 K-Talk.
K-Talk.com.
Number one for the most live, local, two-way talk.
Everybody's talking at me. I don't hear words they're saying. Only the echoes of my mind.
All right, Mental Self-Defense Radio. I'm your host, Jake Shannon, and we are talking about, obviously, politics. Talking about politics from a liberty perspective. Oh, isn't that nice? Instead of the typical, oh, we got to kill these people and bomb these people and, oh, fear-mongering, rah, rah, rah. Yeah, I'm talking about freedom. I'm talking about the ability to live your own life, as you know, and leave other people alone to live their lives, you know. Well, before the break, I mentioned that Piers Morgan actually had Ron Paul on, that it wasn't a complete media blackout. I think what happened is I think there was a media blackout, and then obviously now that Ron Paul's got so many fans, YouTube exploded, Facebook exploded, Twitter exploded. Everybody was so mad at how clear the mainstream media is biased and partakes in this nonsense, this propaganda, that I think a few of the smarter ones caught on. And I think that would be Jon Stewart, who said, hey, we better get ahead of this. Also, Piers Morgan. I just wanted to play a couple clips from this interview with Piers Morgan and Ron Paul. Very, very good interview, I thought.
You want to legalize heroin. Many people don't like your total intransigence over any tax increase, particularly when you have someone like Warren Buffett saying, come on, hit the super rich harder. People don't like your intransigence over abortion, for example, where you don't believe even if someone is raped that they should be allowed an abortion. Are you prepared at this moment when everyone's wondering which way the Republicans are going to go? Are you prepared on some of these more extreme lines you've taken to soften, to moderate, to, in short, make yourself more electable?
Well, why should somebody soften their viewpoint on defending the rule of law and defending the Constitution? That would be foolish. The extremists are in charge. They've been in charge, especially for the last 40 years, since they've been allowed to print money at will. So that's why we've extended ourselves overseas. That's why we have runaway spending with our entitlement system. That's why we have inflation, depression, recessions, and all of these things. That is so extreme. This idea that you have, a couple trillion. This year, our entitlements and debt has obligated our people to $5 trillion. And they think I'm extreme? I mean, this is weird. And they say, oh, no, we'll just print up the money, and everybody will be wealthy. But unfortunately, they give out the money and it goes to the wealthy people. The poor get poorer. That is weird. That is, it's really bad. It's bad economics. It's bad morality. It doesn't conform with our Constitution. And the people know this. They're really waking up to this. And this seems to be, most people come up to me and they say, what you say is common sense. It's not like I'm spouting off some extreme position.
Yeah, hang on, Ron, hang on a second.
Yes.
Hang on a second. I don't think people are rushing up to you in the streets of America saying, legalize heroin, that's common sense, are they?
No, and in fairness to me, I've never used the word heroin once in a campaign ever in 30 years. Though it's somebody in the media says, oh, now we're going to interpret what he said. This might mean that he would allow the states to do such and such. All I'm saying is people ought to have freedom of choice, just as you have freedom of choice in your First Amendment rights, picking and choosing what you do and say on TV. I just think personal choices. I mean, I usually use the example of personal choices to say, why is it that the federal government comes down with a SWAT team to arrest people who drink raw milk? What has happened in this country? So I never use the drug as an example because I know how people demagogue it. But it is true. There was a time in our history not too long ago, there were no federal laws against marijuana in 1937 before that. So this is rather new. We've spent $1 trillion on the war on drugs, and it hasn't done one thing except enhance the drug dealers. So this idea, you can take my philosophy, and I'm not accusing you of doing it, but others have, take my philosophy and say, oh, Ron Paul, his philosophy is he's going to legalize heroin. That's a gross assertion. I want to legalize.
You see it over and over again, and it's just people misrepresenting and they're just speaking in regurgitating these sound bites and and it's all emotion and no thinking and debate and really trying to come to terms with things. That's what's gotten us here. Drives me nuts. Randy in Salt Lake City, you are on the air. Welcome to Mental Self-Defense Radio.
Some of this same demagoguery going on this radio station day in and day out, too, about...
Hey, Randy, let me tell you something. You know what? You don't like it, you don't have to listen to the station. I know you're not talking about me, but turn it off then, okay? And don't use my station to talk crap about other hosts.
Well, I didn't...
Clear? Are we clear? Because I'll hang up right now. Hey, are we clear?
Yeah,
good. Go ahead, then.
I can understand.
Go ahead, Randy.
But I don't appreciate you trying to tell me off.
All right, later. That's how it works. You know what? Change the station if you don't like it. This station is here. We're here day in, day out doing this out of we don't get paid. And the station ownership provides this as a service. So if you don't like it, go elsewhere, because we've got a lot of people that are good fans that do appreciate it. And you know what? You're not going to agree with everybody on this station. Take it up with them. Don't bring it to my show. Be a man. All right, back to Ron Paul.
Freedom. Pardon me?
If you're such a protagonist for people's choice and freedom of choice, why are you so implacably opposed to same-sex marriage and to any form of abortion under any circumstances? That's not supporting choice.
I think you're mixed. I think you're mixed up. I'm against the marriage amendment, and I believe people can do what they want. I don't even want the government involved in marriage. Anybody can do what they want and call it whatever they want. They shouldn't force their will on other people. Abortion, I just recognize as a physician and scientist that life does exist prior to birth. There's a legal right to it, and there's a biological definition of it. And most people don't think about it. That if you say that the woman has a right to do what she wants with her body and what is in her body, that means that an 8-pound baby a month before birth can be destroyed and the doctor be paid for it.
See, these are the things that need to be talked about. Okay, I am sensitive to the fact that, women own their own body and whatnot, and I understand that, but, he's raising these very good, valid points. I happen to be pro-life. And I wasn't always that way. I came around to it because I listened to it. I'm also against circumcision. I never was. I was circumcised as a kid. But I listened to the opposing viewpoint. I didn't get all, riled up over nothing. I listened. And it actually changed my mind. Now, I listen to a lot of opposing viewpoints, and I don't change my mind because I don't think it's a persuasive argument. Now, that said, I mean, I'm not a religious person, really. I'm not. I'm just a good person. I try to live an honest life. I try to be kind. I try to, do charity. I try to do these things. But and so my reason for being pro-life is nothing more than when I went and I've got 2 kids with 1 on the way, and every time I see that ultrasound, it is clear to me that that is a living being. And I do understand there's sticky issues, like in terms of, if a woman's raped and those. I don't pretend to really know what's right or wrong. I don't. I just kind of have a gut feeling like every single other person on this planet. But this is the kind of discussion that needs to be had to really understand all the sides of this issue. I'm going to let him continue.
Something awfully bizarre about a society that says, oh, that's okay because it's a woman's body. And every argument for all abortion endorses the principle that you can take that life and abort it and kill it. And I had to witness this. It's very, very disturbing. So I think that somebody has to speak for the weak and the small, and they do have legal rights. If you're in a car accident and a woman's pregnant and her baby dies, this is homicide. You've committed a very serious crime. You killed a life. So this whole thing that is simple, the woman's right to do what she wants with her own body, no, you have to deal with the fact. You have to decide, is there a real life there? And there is a real life there. I'm liable as a physician. If the woman comes in, if she's a week pregnant or 10 months pregnant or was 9 months pregnant, if I do something wrong, rightfully so, I can be liable for injuring the fetus. So
Now, you notice he's not making these appeals to God or any of this other stuff. And that's fine if you believe in all that. That's fine. But there are so many other people that don't. And we all need to have a place where we can all meet and discuss. And that's called, that's why things are called secular. It doesn't mean no God, doesn't mean God. It just means a place where everybody can get together, whether you're Buddhist or Islam or Christian or atheist or whatever your thing is, and get together and discuss things in a peaceful way. And Ron Paul here is speaking as a physician. He's talking about the fact that if you get in a car wreck and a baby is killed, you're liable for that life, but somehow you're not liable if you go to Planned Parenthood?
Give her the wrong medication, I'm liable for this. To pretend that life doesn't exist, that's like putting blinders on. And I don't talk a whole lot about it, but I made the emphasis the other day that if you truly care about liberty, you have to understand life. Because how can I defend a woman's or any individual's right to lead their own life as they choose and even do dumb things and drink raw milk or whatever they would want to do? At the same time, say that life is not precious, and we can throw away a life even if it weighs 8 pounds because it's within the woman's body. I believe in property rights. I believe that a baby in a crib deserves protection, even though I honor property and a house is our castle. But nobody would say, oh, a woman after the baby's born, we can kill it. And today we have all these abortions done. But if a young girl is in a desperate situation and she happens to deliver her baby and kills it, she's arrested immediately. But if she'd have done it a day before, there was no crime, and the doctor gets paid money. That even if you just divorce this all from the law and enforcement of law, but morality, our society has to decide whether that's morally right or wrong in dealing with this. I have high respect for life, therefore I have high respect for liberty.
Okay,
and it's
Ron,
hard to separate.
You've made your point very forcefully. As always, there will be lots of people watching who vehemently disagree with you, but that is the beauty of a democracy, and I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
That's, to me, the model. You have a guy who has a very thought-out, he's clearly thought deeply about these issues. Can we listen? Why can't we just listen? Let the guy have his thought. And I understand. I'm guilty of it myself. I know I've had people call, and I let you on to criticize me. That's okay. I'm fine with that. I know that I interrupt people or I get riled up, and I'm sorry for that. I'm a human being, but I can also recognize that with somebody like Ron Paul, this guy's a medical doctor. He's an actual scientist. Shouldn't we maybe listen to him a little bit? And he's also an expert on the economy. He's also like the only guy who served in the military before at least Rick Perry joined. He's an expert on the economy, expert on the Constitution. He's an expert on health care. These are all the issues we're dealing with today. He's the one who gets the most support from the troops in terms of donation. They're actually reaching into their wallet and taking the very little money that they earn as a member of our armed forces, and they are giving it to Ron Paul. These are the people on the street. So you know what? I hate to harp on this, but because Ron Paul gets such little coverage elsewhere, I feel like it's important for me to make up for that. I don't know, man. What boggles my mind is people still believe the mainstream media. That really boggles my mind. Go ask the people in your life. Go ask your family members about the news. What's their opinion? I think that they at one level say, oh yeah, it's a bunch of BS, but then they like respond to it and they regurgitate the talking points. It's this weird thing. We've got a friend of the show, and Randy, you're still a friend of the show, but please, man, I don't, if you have a problem with another show or a host or something, leave it there. I got my own life, my own show. You know what I mean? I hate to be curt with you, but I'm a little fired up. So, Kathy and Harriman, friend of the show, how are you today, Kathy?
Oh, hi, dear. I was just going to say that anytime you have a life growing, like a little baby inside of a mother should be able to be encouraged to carry that baby up to full term without having somebody go in there and cut off its head and suck out its brains.
Well, I agree. I mean, look at how many people are just eager to adopt.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true, dear, because there's lots of mothers and little families out there that cannot have any children. And so if a mother absolutely does not want to, try to have it to full term and let some other little mother out there adopt that baby.
Yeah.
And also, I was going to say, I think we got the wrong person behind bars with Warren Jeffs.
Now, Kathy, I know you tell me that every day. I mean, you tell me.
I'd like to see the whole Bush family behind bars. I'd like to see those who are running this country that have messed up this whole country. I'd like to see all them behind bars.
I agree with you with that. I think that it should be them and Jeffs. It seems like Warren Jeffs. I mean, I haven't followed it, and I really don't want to get dragged into it because it's not really a relevant topic for me, because I think it seems apparent that there's been enough testimony and evidence that he really is guilty of taking advantage of people.
There's some things I'm not agreeable with what Warren Jeffs did, but at least he didn't go out there and teach his whole congregation to sing Praise the Lord, Hallelujah to a satanic God.
Well,
and that's been going on in just about every church out there. So,
yeah.
And he also married his women. It's not like he jumped
Kathy,
from woman to woman without marrying him. He had a temple marriage for every one of them.
Kathy, you know I love you, right?
I know, dear.
I'm going to move on this subject, though, okay?
I have to say something once in a while.
I try to let you on, and
I appreciate it.
I know the other hosts don't let you on necessarily sometimes, and I want you to get your voice.
That's why I call you, dear. You're sweet.
Just do me a favor.
You treat me good.
Just do me a favor, okay? Just remember that, you've already mentioned the Warren Jeff things, like, I think the last 3 times that we've had the same conversation.
I know that. And the thing is, I have to say something because nobody else can say anything.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, have a great one.
All right.
Okay,
thanks, dear.
Bye-bye. I can appreciate that. I mean, that's why I let her through. I let pretty much everybody through, but I will say this, if you're really not, I mean, I let Kathy through because she's a sweetheart. She's a really nice woman. And I don't agree, and that's okay. That's what this is about. But, if you're going to be a jerk, please, I'm really not interested in all of that. Casey in Lehigh, you are on Mental Self-Defense Radio. Welcome. How are you, Casey?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm hanging in there. I'm feeling a little volatile, man. I don't know.
Well, you're mentioning, so I'm a recent convert to the Ron Paul cause.
Yeah.
I'm a recovering Republican. I'm still a Republican, I guess.
Okay, wait, hold on. So, Casey, I love this, but we're bumping up against the break.
Okay.
This is fascinating. Save it. We'll be right back. Can you hang on a minute?
Yep.
Okay, hold on. K-Talk, voice of Utah.
AM 630, K-Talk. Utah's oldest, most trusted talk station.
Are you a baby boomer or an empty nester? Were you born between 1946 and 1960? If so, you are a perfect candidate for the new techniques called tooth-conserving dentistry. These new techniques help eliminate the need for root canals, crowns, or caps, even if your teeth are already damaged or have large fillings. The new techniques can even replace missing teeth without dentures, partials, or bridges. Call for a free consultation. 801-254-0835. That's 801-254-0835.
63% of Americans are overweight. If you've decided it's time to leave your flat behind, HipFit Weight Loss is for you. HipFit changes habits. Lose the bad habits, lose the weight. HipFit is guaranteed to make your weight loss successful and has absolutely no health risks. HipFit students are not required to count calories, weigh portions, or buy specialty food. Start losing weight immediately. Call 801-635-4488. HipFit is conveniently located at Salt Lake City Family Hypnosis. Ask about our Guaranteed to Stop Smoking program. 801-635-4488.
Got plugged up or slow draining plumbing? This week, Whipple Service Champions will unplug any drain for just $99. Call 877-WHIPPLE. We have all the permanent solutions. We can jet lines from 2,500 pounds per square inch of water pressure, blasting out even large roots to the full diameter of your pipe. With our underwater camera, we can see settling, breaks, and roots. We can install a liner that is stronger than the original pipe inside of the old pipe with little or no digging. If your old pipe is collapsed and can't be lined, we can burst it and pull in a new high-density polyethylene pipe in place of the old. And if you do need a mainline repair or replacement this week, save $1,000. Call Whipple Service Champions. I'm Kent Whipple, and I personally guarantee your 100% satisfaction or you don't pay. Call 877-WHIPPLE. That's 877-WHIPPLE. After all, you do deserve the very best.
Whipple they come, plumbing troubles all gone.
The voice of Utah. AM 630 K-Talk.
K-Talk.com.
Number one for the most live, local, two-way talk.
I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
All right, Mental Self-Defense Radio. I'm your host, Jake Shannon. Before the break, we had Casey. I love this. Casey, you really couldn't have said anything cooler to me. You're a recovering Republican.
Well,
I love it.
I say that maybe prematurely because I'm still
that's like
with the
T-shirt
party.
material, Casey. You could go to Cafe Press and make up a recovering Republican shirt, man. You make some money.
Yeah. I just might because when I look at it, this is the problem for me. I was a pro-war, anti-personal liberty when I disagreed with what the person wanted to do with their personal liberty kind of guy before. And as I've just evaluated, Ron Paul is really responsible for educating a lot of us and bringing us back to the Constitution and bringing us back to that, does this encourage the liberty of others, thus encouraging my own personal liberty, or does this increase government tyranny? And so, I feel like it's interesting because a lot of the talking point among the ruling class of the Republican Party here in the state and elsewhere is that Ron Paul he's just too weird to ever, get elected, and he couldn't do well in a general election. And I sit there and I listen to him, and you hear how Piers Morgan cuts him off there at the end, and he's done. He doesn't want to continue talking, and it's because with Ron Paul, like Ronald Reagan, the more he talks, the more he convinces you how right he is.
It's the truth, and I love it because this is, I don't know how long you've listened to my show, but I get from time to time these people that call up and they're like, they hate the government, and I understand that. I hate being lied to and I hate being stolen from. So I can understand that, okay? But these people, they call up and they're like ready to join militias and, this is going to be a violent, and I'm like, can you just knock it off? You don't have anthrax. You don't have stealth helicopters. These guys are going to wipe you out. That's dumb. The answer is to do like Ron Paul. Just try to educate people and be kind. Have you ever heard Ron Paul really get nasty with anybody? No.
No, even though they get really nasty with him. Rick Santorum the other day looked like he was about to, I don't know.
You could see like the veins in his forehead like about ready to explode and hemorrhage.
Yeah. I don't know. Him and so that we got the Christian Taliban, the Mormon Taliban. I mean, I just sit there and I'm like, you guys, calm down. Like,
well, you know who I'm trying to get on the show? You know who I'm trying to get on the show, Casey? I don't know if you've read his book, but this is a great guy that I, again, like William Poundstone, who was on in the first hour, that I want to turn people on to. Brilliant educational material, fascinating stuff, make the world a better place. This guy, his name's Jeff Shartlett. He wrote a book called The Family. And basically it's about this Christian dominionism that like Rick Perry, George Bush, Michelle Bachmann, all of them are a part of.
Ought to be.
And it's this theocratic strain within the Republican Party that really wants this to be a Christian nation. And to heck with all the people who are Buddhist or just not interested, I mean, it's...
And my biggest problem with that is they are abusing, it's interesting, they actually abuse the faith that they're alleging to purport, because I actually feel like Rick Perry will do nothing for the Christian right. I don't think Mike Huckabee would have done much. George Bush didn't do anything for him. He just simply took advantage of them, counted their votes, and moved forward. And I think that they're dumb. I mean, the people that just blindly are like, oh, he loves Jesus as much as I do, so I'm great.
Well, they're happy with lip service. They're just happy if somebody says the words they want to hear, and then they could check out and go back to playing Xbox or watching Entertainment Tonight. It's like Ron Paul is a Christian. I'm not a Christian, but I feel safe having him as the president because I don't feel like there's going to be some crazy theocratic stormtrooper knocking on my door because I'm not living up to the particular scripture that I'm not a part of. I mean,
now I do want to hear what you have to say when it comes to Ron Paul, though, on foreign policy, because as a Ron Paul follower and supporter, sometimes I do get a little bit nervous when he talks about, like, I feel like if we got nuked while Ron Paul was president, he might be like, well, it was our own darn fault. And, I don't want to hear that from my president.
Yeah, no, and I think that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable. I do notice that is a bit of a talking point. You find that with kind of the Glenn Beck strain of the GOP trying to recapture the vote from the libertarian strain. He's totally tight on the economy, but boy, foreign policy, he's off. Now, look, you have to understand, this is my view with regards to Ron Paul. The guy, until Rick Perry joined, Ron Paul was the only guy who could speak with actual experience of being in the military. Second of all, he gets the highest number of donations from people who are on the ground, make a diddly squat. First of all, you make like $38,000, the average salary in the Army or something. They're barely making any money, and they're donating. They're the biggest donator to Ron Paul over any other candidates, all the candidates combined, in fact. So it tells me that the people who actually know what's going on or on the ground are affected by these decisions support Ron Paul. Ron Paul's actually been in the military and understands. I don't think that I think it's a total fallacy because nobody's actually asked him what his plan for defense is. What he wants to do is pull back all of these ridiculous military bases that we don't need, like in Germany. What the heck? Why do we have a big...
They still got a little bit of a little group there in Hohenstein. So.
Okay, yeah, but what is that our problem? Why is that our problem? Why are we worried about everybody else's borders and we could just bring back this gigantic, massive military and prop up guns aiming outwards? Nobody could touch us. We've got over 5,000 nuclear arms. We're like way ahead of anybody else in arms. We've got the biggest intelligence infrastructure, and it still didn't stop 9/11 from happening. This is ridiculous stuff. And if you look at some of the guys like, who'd I have on my show? Robert Stinnett. Now, this guy actually served in the Army. He's a World War II vet, served with George Herbert Walker Bush, right? George W.'s dad, served with him in the Army. And he wrote a book. And so this guy's military. This guy's written a book called The Day of Deceit, basically proving how FDR manipulated the media, manipulated intelligence to provoke Japan to attack us, and allowed it to happen. He knew it was going to happen, and he realized that the only way we could get embroiled into this giant war was to make it look like Japan attacked. This book, this is not made up stuff. These are source documents from the government itself.
Yeah.
So I think it's having a smart view of foreign policy. I
agree.
I think Ron Paul is really okay. Here's the one thing that you said about liberty and allowing people to do their. You know what liberty is? Liberty is the golden rule in action. It is if you take the golden rule and throw it at politics. That's what liberty is. And it's basically saying, look, man, liberty is pacifism that'll punch you back. That's what I always say. Leave us alone, but we're not going to set it up like Gulf of Tonkin, which even Robert McNamara, who's the Secretary of Defense, admits we created that to make it look like we were provoked to get into Vietnam, but we totally set it up. And that's what we're finding also with World War II. We're finding that the fake weapons of mass destruction. This is a typical modus operandi. And we've been suckers because we didn't have the internet. People couldn't talk. Whistleblowers couldn't get access to the people. And so I think I understand how fear-mongering works. It works very well. It works so well that you can take your average German, who's a nice, common person like you and me, and fear-monger them to the point where they throw people in ovens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I totally agree. And with Ron Paul, I'm with him like 4 out of 5 times. But it's just a little bit of his foreign policy stuff I would like to understand a little bit more, and so maybe I need to listen to him a little bit more.
Well, I would check out his books. This is the other great thing about Ron Paul over any of the other candidates. The guy's written like 4 or 5 bestsellers on the New York Times. You can go and read what he says, and you can go to YouTube and find out what he says. I think, and you know, the thing with Santorum, man, anybody who is railing about Iran is so much a part of the problem that I can't even. It infuriates me. If you go to globalfirepower.com. Iran, in terms of military firepower, is below Brazil. It's a joke. They don't even have a nuclear arm. You know who's scary? China. And they're setting up these foreign trade zones left and right here. In Boise, they're setting up a 50 square mile city. But if we're distracted with the smoke and mirrors over this absolutely ridiculous threat of Iran. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely unfounded. Sure, I don't know that much about Ahmadinejad. I mean, I've done a little bit of research. When I say I don't know something, that's like not the average person. I'm a nerd, okay? So I know a little bit. But the fact is this.
You got his name, so that's good.
Well, the fact is this. Even if he didn't like us, he can't do anything. Israel is so worried about him. Israel has over 100 nukes. He has none. This is nonsense. It is fear-mongering. It is not rational discussion about these issues.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do want us to be aware of Iran. I mean, we need to have a good pulse on these things, but I don't need a president that's going out looking to get us into Southeast Asia or something like what John McCain probably would have done if he had been elected during that crisis. Or, there's all kinds of things.
Man, that guy's singing that bomb Iran thing, just trying to make that into a soundbite and bypass everybody's critical factor by making a little jingle out of murdering people.
Yeah, it's
because
crazy.
Here's the other thing. Think about this. Think about Hiroshima and Nagasaki for a second. Most Americans don't like to. I don't like to. I don't like to think of the fact that Hiroshima was, in fact, not a military city. That there was a lot of people that may not have liked the emperor. Like, I don't like Obama. But if somebody bombed Salt Lake because they didn't like Obama's policies, and I'm sitting here on the radio saying how much he sucks, and my baby's getting incinerated, that's really lame. And we did that. That's a fact. It's not a pretty fact. The United States has done a lot of great things, but there's been some bad things. Yeah. And this is what we have to do. You know what? If you leave a wound to fester and don't treat it, it just gets worse. We have to just rip the Band-Aid off quick and deal with this stuff.
Yeah. Well, keep playing Ron Paul clips for people, because that's what people need to hear. Because you've got people like my parents who they're apprehensive about listening to him, but the more they listen, then they're going to be like, okay, maybe there's some truth here.
That's the funny thing. What is so apprehensive about listening?
It's that he is quirky, man. I mean, he is kind of a weird dude.
Okay, but yeah, I will give you that. He's not telegenic, But look at Mitt Romney. That guy's the biggest flip-flopper, but he looks like Superman. He looks like straight out of a Pixar movie. You know what I mean?
I was watching it the other day, and I was like, why does he make me want to vote for him? I don't even have a part of my soul that wants me to, but for some reason, visually, I want to.
Yeah, he's slick. But they've understood this since Kennedy versus Nixon, that you have to have a certain look to you. Why was Ronald Reagan so popular? Because he was empathetic. He was a great actor.
Yeah.
And I do think Ron Paul has it. I think the thing is if you can get over the fact that he's like this 75-year-old little dude who doesn't, yell and scream or whatever, but if you listen to him, he is pretty charismatic.
Yeah, no, he really worked. When I was out in D.C. for the Faith and Freedom Conference, he did a great job out there, and they loved him. That was a good, that was a Christian group that's very Santorum-y,
But see, he is Christian, and I'm not Christian, but he's Christian,
no,
and he lives by the golden rule.
I mean, he knows how to play that game, too. I mean, it's just, I actually think it comes from a more authentic place with him than it does, say, someone like Perry, but that's not for me to judge. I'm just saying.
And here's the other thing, Casey. I know I won't keep you here, but here's the thing. If people talk about him not being electable, he's a 12-term re-elected 12 times.
And I lived in his district. I have lived down in that Freeport, that area down in Texas, and he's very well liked. It's not the most conservative area. Lots of welfare cases right there, but he's liked, and he's been he beat out a Democrat when he first took the seat. So that was the sitting Democrat. So I mean he's electable. I think it's just we've got to get him. The media has to give him the exposure of a lengthy interview, and then he can really make his case. Otherwise, if we're operating in sound bites, he might get eaten alive.
No, I think you're right. I mean, he doesn't speak in sound bites, and all these other people are way more savvy with manipulating people. And that's sad that the guy who's honest and straightforward and not manipulating you won't get a hearing.
Totally authentic. Yep. I love him. I'm glad you're talking about it.
All right, Casey, thanks. Let me know when you get that recovering Republican shirt made.
Yeah, thank you so much. Love the show. Have a good one.
Thanks, Casey. All right, guys, so, we're wrapping up here. We're coming to the end. Another good show. I appreciate all the callers. I just am trying to provide other information. I know that it doesn't, it's not as cool as Dancing with the Stars or something, but this is way more important. Important not just to you, but to your kids and your grandkids. And to mine. So please, get involved. All right, we'll be back tomorrow. Mental Self-Defense Radio, K-Talk.
AM 630, K-Talk. Where patriots come to cheer and progressives run in fear.
Hey, it's not the Computer Girl from PC Laptop. It's back to school time and everybody needs a good computer for school, work, and home. I want you to ask yourself some questions about your computer. Is your computer running crappy? Does it sound like there's little demons running around inside? Does it smell like burnt almonds? Do you wonder if you have viruses or spyware? Or are you just wondering? Did you know at PC Laptops we can fix any brand of desktop or laptop